What is going on, guys? Welcome to another video of the C programming tutorial. Today we will cover input and output. So the first thing that we need to talk about before going into inputs and outputs is the format specifiers. And format specifiers are used to identify the data type while printing data stored in variables to the screen. Okay, so it's a way, in other words, it's a way for us to tell what data we will print, what type of data we will need to print into the screen. So they go along with the data types that we mentioned on the previous video. So the syntax for that is that we start with a percentage sign, and then we use the character for the format specifier. So for instance, if I want to print an integer, an int to the screen, the format specifier is %d, as you see below on the example. So we do print the sum is equals to %d, and this will be replaced by the value of sum, of the variable sum. So what will happen is that on screen the result, the output will be sum equals 10, because whenever whatever you see the %d, this means that this character will be replaced in our message to the value of the variable. Okay, so in this case to the value of the variable sum. And the format specifiers that we will be using throughout the course will be the %d, and this will be used to print, and you'll see that it's also used to read integers. %f, it's used for floats and doubles. %s will be used for strings, even though we haven't mentioned strings yet, we will in future. And %c for chars. So these four will be used very commonly throughout this course. And as we saw already many times on the videos and even now on the first slide, the way that we use to print data into the screen is with using the function printf. Printf is a function of the stdio library that we include, and this library this method allows us to print messages into the screen. The syntax, as you see on the second bullet point, is printf, which is the name of the function. Then we open parentheses, and inside of our parentheses, like we will do for all functions, even though we haven't covered functions yet. So the first argument is the output. So it's the message that we want to output into the screen. And this message can have or cannot have, it's not mandatory, format specifiers. We can use only letters, or if we want to print values that are stored in the we can use only letters, or if we want to use variables values and print them into the screen, we will use the corresponding format specifier, and this format specifier will be replaced by the variable value. Okay, so we can have more than one format specifier. Actually, we can have more than one on the same message. So that's why you see arg1, arg2, and then we can have as many arguments as we need to. So for each format specifier that you have on your message, you will have one extra argument on your printf. Okay, so if you have 3 format specifiers, this means that you have to name all the 3 variables that the value will be printed for. Okay, and in the third bullet point, we actually have an error on the slide. So if you check this and if you type this on the Visual Studio or Xcode, you would see that we would get a compilation error, a build error, because we have a message saying variable name equals %d, which is a format specifier, but then we don't name what is the variable. So this means that we have a format specifier, but we don't have a variable to use the value for. Okay, so this would give an error. So for input so far we haven't done it yet. We will cover also in this video how to do it. And for reading input from the keyboard of the user, we will use the function scanf. And scanf, the syntax is we have the control string, which will be pretty much one or more format specifiers, and then again the variable addresses, so we can have one or more again. So depending on how many format specifiers you'll have, you will need to have as many variable addresses as format specifiers. So if you look at the code below of the sample below, we have a var a variable, which is an int. It's defined as an int, and then we are reading into this variable what the user types into the screen. Okay, so in this case we are saying the user will type an integer because we have the format specifier %d, and we will store this value into the variable a. Note the ampersand. Okay, so the first argument in this case is the format specifier, like we mentioned, and the second argument is the variable address. Okay, so if you check, we have an extra character which is the ampersand, and ampersand, what it does is instead of getting the value, it gets the address. So whenever you need to get the address of a particular variable, we use ampersand. Because if you check the syntax of the scanf on the second argument, it says that it's the variable address, it's not the variable itself, it's the address of the variable. Okay, so that's how we can read input from the user. Okay, let's do some examples now, and both functions are contained within the same library, so both scanf and printf, I mean. So let's include this library, so include, and the library, as we saw before, is stdio. Okay, and so now we have included it. Actually, let me just make this a little bigger, and we should be ready to go. And now let's do our functions. So int main. So far nothing new, and we will need to at the end to return some integer. So return 0. And now let's actually start on the topic of this video. So let's do a printf just to get some inputs. So what we will do is we're going to ask the user to input a number. Input number. Okay, and then we will switch the line. So at this point we print this message. We don't have any format specifiers, so we don't need to add any variable to it. And user will input, and we'll type something into the screen. And we ask user that it should be a number. So let's create a variable of type int, and let's call it number. And for now this variable doesn't have any value. Okay, so let's assign to the variable number the value that the user inputted into the screen. Okay, so let's use scanf, and we need to tell what is using the format specifier, we need to tell what type of data the user will input. So we asked for a number, we asked for an integer, so let's put %d, which is for integer. And now the second argument of the scanf is we need to tell him what is the variable that we want to store in memd, but not just the variable, the address of the variable. So let's put ampersand because this means an address, so I want to store it at the address of the variable number. Okay, and after we do this, let's actually print what we read into the screen. So let's do a printf again, and the message will be you inputted, let's actually type it, well, inputted the value, and then space, and we will use, at this point I want to print the value that is on the number, so let's put the format specifier again for the %d because it's an integer, and this %d will be replaced with the value of the variable, in this case number. So let's input the variable that we want to use. So since we only have one, this %d will be replaced with the value of this variable here. Okay, so let's run our program and let's see if it works. So as you see, it's asking me for a number, so I'll input 5 and press enter, and if you see, after I press enter, it said you inputted value 5. Okay, so this means that it was stored on the variable, so it asked for a number, we typed the number, and it was stored on the variable number, and then we printed this number into the screen using this this line over here. So let's do another run. Let's input a different value. Let's make 10, and it says you inputted value 10. Okay, now let's assume that instead of being an integer, we want to input a float. So let's create a float number. So we have our variable created, and again let's print a message to the screen asking for a float number, for a float in this case. Please input a number with decimal places. And then let's switch the line and let's read this number. So scanf, and we will read it. Okay, what type of data this is? It's a float, so %f. Okay, and we will read this into the variable float number. So in this case, to the address of float number. And then let's do a printf just to confirm that everything worked fine. So the number inserted was, and now %f, because we will type a float into the screen. So this %f, we want to replace it with the value of the float number. Okay, so let's see how it goes. So let's run it, and this is the first, it's the integer, so let's make it 3. It says you put the value 3, we need to add a line break there. And now it says, let's actually stop it and put the line break, otherwise it will be confusing. So let's make it here actually. So before typing we will do a line break. So let's run it again. Input a number, we'll put 3. It says you inputted the value 3, and now it says please input a number with decimal places. So let's make it a float. Let's put 20.6. And it says the number inserted was 20.6. Don't mind the extra characters. Actually, let's mind them. So let's suppose that we want to only see up until 2 decimal places. So we want to see 20.60. Okay, how can we do it? We can actually use some variation of the float of the format specifier. So if we put .2f, and if we run it again, so let's first input, and if on the second one we put the same value, so 20.6, we see that it prints out the number inserted was 20.60, even though we haven't inserted any zero. So this means that whenever we put dot something before the f, between the percentage and the f of the float, we are telling the compiler what is the number of decimal places that we want to display. So we said that we want to see it with 2 decimal places, so that's why I added the extra 0. If we switch this into 4, and actually let's comment this part over here. So another thing that I'll teach you how to do is a multi-line comment. We already saw that 2 forward slashes is a single line comment, so this int number variable is now commented, and that's why we are seeing this error, because the number is no longer existing. Because remember that everything that is commented is ignored by the compiler, by the program. So number, it's almost like this line doesn't exist for our program, so number is not existing anymore. And if we want to do multiple lines, we can put forward slash and then the asterisk to start the multi-line block, and whenever we want to stop it, we do the reverse, so asterisk and forward slash. So this means that all these lines are commented now, and they will be ignored by our program. They are just for internal use. So let's run our program now, and notice that now it's asking right away these messages here. Please input a number with decimal places. So let's input now the same value, so 20.6, and remember that we switched to 4 decimal places, so we should see 4 decimal places now. So I'm going to press enter, and as you see, we have 4 decimal places. Okay, and let's do another run. Let's see what happens if I do so 20.63499. Let's see what happens if I use this number. So notice that it was rounded up because we have 4 decimal places. The last number that we gave was a 9, so it rounded up. Okay. So whenever you use this, the program will automatically round up or down according to the last value inserted to be matching the decimal places that you specified. So that's it. Thank you for watching. I hope you liked the video, and if you have some question or any suggestion that you want to make on how we can improve these courses, and any doubt, feel free to leave a comment and I'll try to answer as soon as possible. And if you like the content and want to keep watching, don't forget to subscribe to be notified whenever there is a new video released. So thank you for watching. I see you in the next one.